All right, so we're here. It's Stan Brooks, Christophe Clugston, and Ken O'Neill, who is rapidly getting a name, but we won't let that out yet in public for this stuff. And actually, Ken, weren't you were just yeah, that's kind of funny. We were talking about some combat JKD stories, and we need to share some of them with everybody. And one of the cool ones, the one that grabbed me, one of the mini stories is the one you were talking about, Mike, with the Tommy gun, the Thompson gun. Why don't you tell us that? Tell that story to everybody.
All right, so I'm not the part I don't remember. Stan might be able to help me with this, but Stan, that was the first time I actually met Mike, and that was down at Little Freeman. I don't remember. I don't remember if you were there or if you showed up after I got there or before I did. Do you remember that?
I remember bits and pieces, but I do think I was there because I really missed the class.
Yeah, and I can't imagine you would have sent me down there and not been there for that.
Right.
But so anyway, all right. So here I am. I guess I think that was in '73, which was the year I started with Stan. I guess Mike to check me out or me at least. And so I drive down into the heart of East St. Louis, and I park, and there's this. So I thought it was. I wasn't expecting it to be where it was, like kind of downtown like that in the city, you know. So anyway, Stan, correct my memory if you can, but I think I had to push a buzzer. I don't think the door was unlocked. I think I had to buzz, and I had to let me in. Because I remember that I was at the street level, and you had to go upstairs to get up.
Right.
So anyway, however that works, all I know is I remember coming in the front door, and as I'm starting to come up, this guy who I don't know steps back out of apparently the entrance to the. He steps back, and he looks down the stairs at me, and the left arm comes up, the right hand has like a Woolworth type Thompson 45 caliber machine gun, long 25 round clip, drops it in the crook of his elbow. He doesn't point it at me. It's like it's at this angle, and I'm down here, and he goes, "You can," and I go, probably something like peeing my pants, and hell yeah. He goes, "Come on out, man." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this? Where am I?" I know like, what's that crazy Stan doing? Is this a Black Panther meeting or something? These guys are gonna string me up. I was like, really, that is so creepy. And knowing Mike, that was super deliberate. He wanted me to see that, and he wanted to see if I even called to come up the steps. He showed me it. Left, so he was right. It was a good test.
Why did he bring a 45 submachine gun to the class?
Well, I think two things, and then Stan, you tell me your thoughts. What I figured would be later thinking about this is, at the time, he was a St. Clair County Sheriff's deputy, as I recall. Does that sound right, Stan?
He had just recently, I think, retired.
Oh, retired. Okay. And, those guys have access to all kinds of weapons and, all that stuff. And plus, I'm sure Mike was figuring, who knows who's going to come in here. You know how he is about guns. They're always
Yeah.
That's what he had. The night I met him, that's what he had. And so I knew it had to have some connection to him, having worked with the sheriff's department. So that was pretty intense.
Yeah, that was part of the, I guess, the test. If you had the guts to come on inside.
I don't remember the rest of the class. I think I was unconscious. I think those guys knocked me out so fast. I don't even know what happened after that. I just know that I found myself on the sidewalk afterwards, dressed like Bo Peep, and I'm like, well, what is this all about? Okay, I'm kidding about that part too. But truly, I don't really remember what happened in the class. I think I was stuck on the fact that this guy had a Thompson, and all the rest of anything I remember about that night is blacked out.
Hey, Stan, did you ever have any bizarre things with Carl though? Not Mike, but Carl. Did Carl ever do any weird stuff like that, or what?
No, Carl was much more tame than Mike. I mean, Carl was more, I would say, structured, systematic. Mike was more into sort of like giving you the experience. Carl was mostly like taking you through the process in terms of the technical training. So it was kind of good that Mike broke me in. Because, so Carl was a lot easier.
Explain that. I mean, explain what you mean there. How Mike broke you in.
Well, the same thing that Ken is talking about. Mike wanted to sort of like shock you in terms of, the reality of combat, to kind of test you, fill you out, to the point that you really want to learn how to fight. Because that's what a fight is all about. You got a little bit of fear, you got some intimidation. So he takes you through that emotional experience just to
absolutely
see what you're about. Yeah.
He's the best. He's the best in the world at that. Seriously. I mean, these other guys, what they started calling later reality-based self-defense, tried to emulate that, but Mike was way ahead of that. Been doing that stuff a lot longer and also better, to put it mildly. That was like I talked about before in one of our talks, Ken and my talks, about how you had to pass. Mike didn't train you unless he thought you were all right, brother. Are you right? So was that was part of your screening test, right? Is that what you're talking about? That he was screening you, the beginning thing?
Yeah, definitely. He wanted to know what kind of person you are, and he wanted to know if you were able to go through his training. So he gave me his test.
We gotta. I think we need to emphasize that and talk about that aspect, because this is totally different than what people have done. Unless you've been with like military units where you have to qualify and be selected and stuff, or go through specific training like that, where there's a selection process specifically for that, like there are with professional athletes too. But just on this case, these are not classes. None of us were like in a school with Mike where you just came in and said, I want to train. He said, okay. Didn't work like that. And it wasn't something that was ongoing and you just started getting to, you had to have basically a referral. I mean, I had a referral to him from someone else who didn't last long with him, but said that I would be good for Mike. Mike would be good for me, whatever. And I had to have a referral. And then that guy told me how to try to get in contact with him, and try to get in contact with him actually before that to say, hey, I got a guy you should talk to. And that took over a week on that, just on that aspect, trying to make contact. And he called back, or he called the number that we had left for him, and he said, I heard you're looking for me. You want to train, or something along those lines, paraphrasing. And this is selection. This is not like how Dan trains people, or Vunak, or 1,000, or Ted Long, or any of those guys. This was you had to pass selection, and a lot of it wasn't just physical ability. There was a character test. Lots of character tests. Those never ended, actually. With me, when I trained with him, character tests never ended. He was constantly character testing me. But why don't you guys go into that? Because I'm certain, Stan, because you were talking about, in some ways, he tried to drive you away, which was a character test, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I'd like to add something else to that point too, because I think you have to realize it on a personal level. So in other words, you have to be able to assess yourself, what talent you have, your skill level. And to be perfectly honest, I don't consider myself, even at that time, to be very talented or very gifted or whatever. I think Mike was testing me for my sincerity. I think he tested my character to the point to say, will he listen to me? Will he follow me? Because with everyone, he sets you up for failure. So he's going to look at you and say, are you going to be willing to accept that failure? If you are, and you got the good work ethic, he can bring your skill level up. So I think with my character, he looked at basically, is he humble? Will he listen to me? Will I follow his lead? Okay. I think that's how I passed the test.
I think that from some of the things you're saying, he was looking for you for a quality which is important, especially with fighters. We look for this. Will you quit? or in the same thing, military. Will you quit? You know, he was trying to probe you to see if you'll quit. You know, because a lot of guys who come to normal classes, they wouldn't begin to do any of the stuff that we had to do. They would not do it. They wouldn't do it if someone paid them to do it. So I think that's what he was doing. From some of the things you told me, Stan, was that he was looking to see if you're going to quit or not, and obviously you didn't quit. But Ken, what sort of character?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about all this too. You know, I don't think there's anything that Mike did. It wasn't deliberate. Just like my test the first time. Well, this crazy little honky boy who's in the middle of a place that's not safe for him, and his skinny little butt even had the balls to come down there. Okay, he had the balls to come down there. Now, walk up the steps with a guy with a submachine gun. If he does, he's crazier than fuck. Maybe I'll let him in, you know. And then, but when I think back, I think of other things too. You know, there was a old friend of mine. Okay, this is an interesting little story, and it fits right with what you're saying. So, when I was a freshman at SIU, a high school teacher of mine started a study at a high school in Collinsville where I graduated. And he invited me to his Asian studies class. He said, can you do some kind of a little talk on how Chinese culture has influenced their martial arts, and how their martial arts are part of their culture? And I go, oh, that's easy. I put together a nice little lesson, and I show up down there and sitting in the front row, Chinese kid, 15 years old, right? And I'm starting to go into the whole thing, you know, and Chinese martial arts and the culture, etc. Next thing I know, these walls are opening, and three other classes join us. There's an English class and I don't know, history, world history, and I'm like, holy crap, this thing just smoked like 100 people. I was a little nervous. I was like 19 at the time, and I'm like, what the heck, right? So it gets down to the point about I'm trying to explain certain things about Chinese martial arts as I understood at the time. So we get to the point of now I'm doing, okay, and just started doing is Bruce Lee's approach and how it's different and how it's very unique. So I have my air shield with me, the old inner tube.
Yeah.
Stand
the sidekick.
Yeah. So I'm looking around and the little 16-year-old Chinese kid sitting there like this the whole time looking at me. So I go, I need a volunteer. How about you? So I point to this kid, all right? He gets up. He hauls the air shield. And I thought, man, I better make this look good. So I did the little trick where you coming in with that Junfan sidekick. Stan taught me this. I don't even know if you remember this, Stan. Drop your knee a little bit and make the kick go up a little bit above the crease. That force will take the guy up. If he's not prepared, he's going down on his butt. And that kid was skinny. Ed was skinny back then. I lifted him off his feet. I dropped him and he across the dusty floor, and the people were just. So right then and there, the kid comes up to me after class, invites me to his home. His dad's a very famous political science professor who came here from Taiwan. He was Chiang Kai-shek's right-hand man, and he was an attorney and advisor. He was a poli-sci professor at SIU, which is close, to Collinsville. So I became immersed in this family, and so one thing leads to another. One of Mike's invites to come to Penn Towers Apartments, to his apartments. I bring Ed with me. Now, Ed and I are really excited when we show up because he contacted his uncle in Hong Kong. His uncle sent us very traditional Chinese clothing to train in, the whole dance and the frog button thing. And I remember mine was light gray, and I thought, this is so cool. And wrap it with the sash. We had the little black slippers, and I put up in this top. Stan, do you remember this? I don't know if you were there for this. Were you there for this?
I think so, yeah.
So we showed up in the outfits and stuff. So here again, here's Mike, right? He's testing your character, right? So he's, we do a little stuff. No. We go up in the apartment, and he said, hey, let me try that on. And I'm like, you can see it's all baggy in here, right? I'm like, okay. So I'm taking this stuff off. So Mike goes and puts it on. And it's like, even though it's baggy on me, it's like skin baggy. And he comes out and he's wearing it all and he's like, yeah, I think I like this. I think I like this. So he doesn't say, I'm going to keep it. He just says, I think I like this. And he merely just doesn't give it back. And I'm thinking at the time, well, this is freaking weird, but.
Did you ever get it back? Did you ever
get
it
back?
back?
I don't know. He never gave it back. But, you know, it's not like I was paying this guy $100 in class. So I thought, oh, well, I was kind of bummed because it's like I thought this stuff was cool, and that was about the second time I ever wore it. Now, one step further, testing character. That was one. Okay. 2, Stan, this came to me not that long ago. But remember when I told you how that was Robin at the time, right? That he was with at the time, I think, was Robin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Robin.
So his girlfriend Robin's there. And this never occurred to me till recently, but I think this gal would just look at me and shake her head and he'd go, remember Peabody and Sherman show? The guy with the glasses, I think, was.
Yeah. It's Peabody. Yeah.
Sherman anyway, all you had to have the black plastic glasses, thick plastic glasses. She goes, she'd be laughing and pointing at me and really just ridiculing me for looking like this Sherman. She would never shut up. She just wouldn't quit, you know. And I would not be surprised one iota if Mike didn't even put her up to that. I never even thought of that before, but I would not be surprised. He wanted to see what I would do, how I would react. So all I would do is choke it down. The fact that I just wanted to would go like, hey, Mike, do you have to go to the bathroom now? And punch it right in the head. That's what I wanted to do, but I just sit there and go, ha, ha, ha. So a little humiliation, a little ridicule, you know.
Oh, well, the point that goes back to what I was saying, that especially nowadays, millennials would definitely never be able to cut it. They couldn't take any of this. They would be so offended and turmoil and want to seek a safe place. Any of this, because he did all sorts of things, emotionally scaring you, psychologically scaring you, and because what do you think a fight's going to be, brother? As he would say, what do you think a fight's going to be? You think it's going to?
Yeah.
Is it going to be pleasant? Is it going to be a family thing? Is it going to be something where there's no threat of losing something, no threat of sacrificing something? And so there's many things he said that I've said to people I've trained because it's accurate. But I just want to really concentrate on this factor. This was a unique time that we went through because it was selection, baby. This was selection. And it was ongoing. I mean, you didn't just pass it once and you were in and didn't have to worry about it. It was constant. It was going on. And like I said, he played games with me I didn't even realize until I started talking to you guys because he made me feel like, oh, if you don't get through this quickly, obviously faster than anybody, he wasn't saying that except he told that to Carl once. He said, he's learning really fast. He's learning really fast. But he also said things to Carl like, well, I don't know, Ken and Stan made it, but I don't know about him. I was like, what the hell? Because I thought you guys were supermen, because it was great training and everything because I was doing, like I said before, 4 hours a day, 6 days a week at the minimum 4 hours a day, 6 days a week. So, I did it far more intensely than anybody else, but he made me feel like you guys had done it in less time than me. That was his thing. No, he did. He made me think that you guys had done it in less time than I was taking. And then later I find out you guys did it over a period of years. That bastard. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that bastard, because here I was, plowing through all this stuff. And there are a couple guys that were started when I started, there were already a couple guys and they all left or didn't make it or got cut, however you want to look at it. And it was just me, And so, but he still made me feel like, well, I just don't know if you're going to be Ken, Stan, or Ron, the other guy, Ron, who was dead. It's like, I don't know, And so, I mean, what the hell? I mean, that was one for years I didn't know he was pulling on me.
There's something you have to, I think you need to, all of us need to really, truly realize Mike was completely authentic. He was, I consider, the real McCoy because he took us through a path that he himself went through. Because on that one interview, he admitted that in high school, when he was going to Eastside High, he had a girlfriend, and he was the type that would write poetry and love letters. And his first fight was because a bunch of guys ganged up on him because they got jealous of him dating this girl. So he said from that point on, he stopped fantasizing. He grew up. So he did things to test himself in terms of how much ridicule, how much embarrassment. And I happened to witness a couple of those things myself. So I think he just took us sort of like along the same path that he was on because he knew it was a real path. It was an authentic path. So I don't think he asked us to do anything more than what he did.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, same thing. I say the same thing to guys that I train, you know, and they're like, why? They kind of like, oh, you're being sadistic, laughing at us in misery. And I said, that's why I did this stuff, because I went through all that too. Now I get to see someone else suffering and stuff. And I think it's funny, you know what I mean? Because I went through it. Don't think it's nothing I haven't done, you know. And yeah, exactly. I mean, Mike he knew. I mean, he always talked about Vietnam a lot with me, and this was his model of war, and this was because of the jungle warfare and because of how insidious the fighting was. You didn't know who you were fighting. I mean, they pretend to be your friends, but then they were actually your enemies. And so he was very clear about how you stayed alive in situations like that, the tactics you had to use. I won't go into that here, but you know, we'll do it sometime at a training seminar course, whatever. We'll do that. So, but anyway, I mean, yeah, of course. And he really, I mean, I got to emphasize the fact that this was combat JKD. This wasn't JKD as art. It wasn't JKD as ideology. This was combat JKD, and that was what separated it from me, because when I met Dan and Dan wasn't talking about the things Mike did, I said to Mike, how come he's not talking about these things? They're salient, they're important, they're extant. He said, well, they're not dealing with combat. They're just dealing with the motions, you know? And he made a big deal about how a lot of people just go through the motions. I think that, Ken, that's like a big thing about your schism, right? Because you just kind of got fed up with what you saw in certain aspects of the commercialized aspects of JKD colleagues, a lot, whatever. Just said going through the motions, right?
Well, yeah, the way he was, and this was just an evolution as I was, you know, because I was the guy immersed full time. So, yeah. You know, this is, as you well know, you make discoveries when you're immersed full time in this stuff that you could never make. I did the gaps that you have when you're a part-time professional guy.
Yeah. Right.
You know? And I didn't know that until I got immersed in this daily for a long time. I mean, I taught the whole time I was there. I taught an average of 30 hours a week on top of selling memberships and managing that place. I taught 30 hours a week. Now, my method of teaching at that time was most of the time I was immersed in the class as well. So I was getting a lot of training in my own classes and still training outside the classes. Wind sprints, 7-mile runs around Forest Park, hardcore Nautilus training at the time. And I decided I better get shape because no guys are going to come in here and challenge. I had plenty of guys that came in and tried to knock my block off. One of them was a guy who was traveling with the Cowboys. He was 6'5" and weighed 275 pounds. He walks into school one day and he says to me, he goes, yeah, you know, that little Filipino guy down to the Cowboys down there with this little guy from Thailand. And basically they can kick the crap out of anybody. And they told me that there's some guys in St. Louis that, you know, are part of this whole thing. And I did a little checking around. Here you guys are. And he says to me, and I, like, back then I think I weighed at that time 142 to 145 because I was training all the time. So here's a 6'5" 275 football player, right? And, well, you can do anything to me at all, I'll sign up. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, if I can do something to you and you can't stop me, you got to take private lessons. So we'll go beyond the group class. And he said, okay. And so, you know, I whipped you know, sloppy kind of street look at me. And, you know, at the time, what we were working on in the FMA was, I grabbed his tricep, tied it, you know, curled up the skin, grabbed it tight, and I dropped my elbow as hard as I could on his bicep. That was it. He was down. That took him down, and his arm was locked up, and he goes, kind of cussing at me, and I'm like, okay, whatever, man. You know, he wasn't mad at me because it hurt. He's used to pain. He's mad at me because I was little, and he thought he was going to go work for him. So anyway, so that was all cool. That kind of got things rolling with that guy. But I guess, you know, the thing for me was that was functional. And I just kind of was deciding I was teaching all these people and getting in these weird situations, guys. And that's like, I was kind of channeling Mike, I guess. And this is,
yeah.
I just don't want to do 400 variations of stick work and memorize the history and stuff. It just didn't turn me on. Yeah. I mean, it's cool, but it wasn't my thing. Yeah. And I started really focusing on playing the JKD methodology. You know, I was pulling stuff out of training. Ron Smith was my thing the other night, was fantastic, and Norm, and stripping it down. You know, I started taking all the takedowns I learned back in Aikido. You saw some of this when you saw that video of me when you found me, where I took a lot of Aikido approaches to takedowns and throws, and smaller. I made them fit in off a really tight inside work. Yeah. And I was in that phase of beginning to modify all my stuff and make it shorter, tighter. The knife work I was learning, I got real brutal and nasty and mean with that stuff. Same thing with the stick work. And I was just trying to make it a really hardcore, effective, solid self-defense. That's just where my head went. Because I saw guys doing all this stuff and struggling, and I just said, you know, man, it's just like guys were telling me I want to be able to handle myself out there. All this other stuff is cool, but that's what I want. And I kept hearing that. And I said, yeah, man, you know, we're kind of in a quandary here, because to do that, I have to strip things down to their essentials, basically, you know, the old Bruce Lee line, right? And that's what got me focused in that direction. I really started backing off. Fits in with the other comment I made about one time in one of our all semi-private classes that Dan and I and Jay and everybody else, Dan and Asano, and when one day Dan had us doing a bunch of the Jun Fan trap, and I was doing them with Dan, and you know, I'm doing stuff, and I said, Dan, I just really don't dig this. I kind of don't see the point. I can just be crashing and throwing an elbow. All right, going straight to grappling. I don't see the point of all this for something that goes like that. Other than I see that it gives me better timing and sensitivity. I see that. And he just smiled. And he goes, He just smiled and like you know, okay, you're figuring it out here. I haven't said more than that. But I think he figured out what I was doing. You know, Dan's a sharp guy and a very insightful man, you know. And I suspect he got some of that from Bruce as well. But I think he figured out. I think he solved problems at it.
Well, that goes back to the reason he validated Mike, because he knew that Mike was doing a section that he didn't want to do. Because as Dan has said many times, he's not really a fighter. He doesn't have the fighting spirit directly. You know, he has the technical. He likes it for the mastery. You know, he likes mastering it, but he doesn't have the primal part. And obviously, if you're really a great fighter, you've got many qualities, but you definitely have a primal thing that's going to drive you to keep fighting. And there was a primal. We all know Mike Scanlon has a primal flame, like a bonfire. You know what I'm saying? And
I think Mike's the guy that gave me permission to release something. I had rage. I had a really violent old Marine dad. That guy beat me so bad when I was 6 years old. I could not sit. I was solid purple bruises from just above my kidneys all the way down to my rear end. It's so bad that it even did something to me internally. I was constipated for weeks. He messed me up. And I always remember, I always walk around, you know, what do you do about this? What do you do about this? And I started figuring out, well, just like kids in school, you know, if you let bully guys pick on you become their victims all the time. And I already started a mentality as a kid. It's like, I don't know. I'm not going to do that. If I have to pick up and slam a guy in the head while he's asleep, if that's the only way I can stop this mofo from screwing with me, that's what I will do. And I started carrying big chunks of rock that on sides of this slag from the steel mill in Granite City that were on hills in our yard, putting them in my little book satchel, taking them to school. And I out a kid with those who used to pick on me all the time, and this was like in the freaking 3rd or 4th grade, you know. I used to humiliate me, and I could hit him, and I couldn't hurt him. So I remember coming out of school one night, running down the street, and I jumped into this little culvert, and I hid in there, waited until this jackass walked past me. When he did, he walked past me, and I remember taking one out in each hand, and I ran up behind him. And I didn't throw him at first. I just started bashing him in the head. Then when he went down, I threw him and hit him in the head, and the kid was laying there bleeding unconscious. I was a little kid when I did that. But I always had this crazy rage thing. This is what happens to you. People beat you, and they put energy into your body. It is negative energy. This comes out in massage therapy. You know, they teach you massage therapy and in training for psychotherapy, which, you know, I was in grad school for that. That they have a phrase called "issues are in the tissues." When people abuse you, whether you're a woman and it's rape or a guy and you're beat, that energy is in your tissue, man, and it's there. And if you don't release it in a healthy way, you release it in an unhealthy way, or you internalize it and it gets on the inside. So I decided to internalize it. The problem was it took a lot of years to get a lot of that stuff out of my head. Yet I still know in the right situation at the right time, I'll rip you a new asshole, and I don't care who you are. If you go too far with me, I'm not afraid of you. I don't care who you are, and that's the way. And I think Mike deliberately, I know he saw that in me. Otherwise, I didn't get that group. I know he saw that. And I think he knew that was there, and he knew, oh, this guy channeled this. He'll be able to take care of some stuff, you know. So there's some personal revelation about the process.
Did you have any sort of violent tendencies? now that we've heard about the criminally insane Ken, who probably has got people trying to figure out who that little kid was back then, and now included in because he's confessed, and he's probably going to be rounded up because of this, you know. But Stan, did you have anything like that? I mean, what was your motivation? Yeah, that's it. What was your motivation to want to do martial arts, and then especially with Mike?
Well, the thing is, I think we have to understand is that everybody has a different psychological makeup. So, you know, some people, that aggressive tendency is in the forefront. Other people, it's like latent in the background. For me, it was more in the background. What was in the forefront for me was being very shy, being very introverted. You know, I love physicality. I love to play sports, but I was never good enough to make the teams, you know, with the high school. So I thought I'd do something solo like martial arts. You know, that's an activity you can do on an individual basis. And I always liked martial arts because it showed the discipline that the mind can place on the body. So the mind is just discipline the body to do what it wants to do. This is how I looked at martial arts training. So when I first looked at Mike and I saw him show those qualities, I said, wow, I want something of what this guy has. You know, it was like looking at somebody that just had like an aura and a light, and you said, I want to get some of that. That's all I was doing. I was sort of like starstruck, like, you know, but I didn't know how it would happen. So, like I said, the reason I passed the test because I think Mike figured that, okay, he's got a good work ethic, he's going to stick to it, and he's going to listen to me. Because a lot of guys in our class, you know, we had different egos. They didn't He went in one ear out the other, and they couldn't trust him. So I think that's why I went. But I think we need to keep in mind that sometimes when you have instructors and teachers, their mission is different. Some people are designed to perpetuate the art, to teach it. That means the technical part of it, the historical part of it, but they still have that combative button that you can't see from the outside. But with Mike, you can see his is on the outside. There's no doubt about that. But with other teachers, we have to keep in mind, if you touch that button, even though they may seem to be philosophical or spiritual or technical, if you push the right button, buddy, that fighter's going to come out, you know.
Yeah.
It may not even come out if you threaten them, but if you threaten their children or you threaten their wife, see, whatever button is, it's going to come out. So I think for me, you know, Mike kind of helped me come out. That's the
I mean, I think that overall, he probably connected with you on that aspect too because of his introversion, right? Because I mean, we all know Mike is more of a recluse introvert than anybody would expect, really. Probably he probably connected with that. I would also say now, I mean, I know that now. I mean, looking back, I think that probably connected with him too, because he was looking for your analysis. I mean, you would do an analysis more than a lot of people, because when he was training me, he was telling me, he kept thinking that I wasn't going to make it because he thought I was too young, and the thing was that the people who were younger, they had no analysis. They just want to do stuff, and they wouldn't listen to the reasons why or how or think about how are you going to apply this tactically, not just techniques. It wasn't just like we're talking about. It wasn't just like hitting something. There's more involved into it. It's like, when do you hit? How do you hit? Why do you hit? All these things are part of it, and making you have to be a thinking. You have to think when you go through this stuff. You have to think. You have to react. And a lot of people can't react. Not truly. They can't react. So they can be told, do this pattern on the pads, but there were no patterns on pads with Mike. No patterns. You either were successful or you failed. And so that's one of the reasons what made Combat JKD so different. But once again, Mike was very true to the fact that, what are we doing? We're doing something that's made for combat. And if you're going to talk and if you're going to train other people, you have had better been in combat, because otherwise it's a disservice. You can be a fan, you can be someone who does this as a hobby, but you can't be an instructor. And that was one of the things Mike was very clear about, and one of the things I'm clear about too. That's why I rammed down on a bunch of people who were posers, dilettantes, ultra crepidarians. They don't have the experience. They have no operational experience. It's fine. You can do this and that, but you have your voice doesn't matter. It's like a witch doctor trying to talk about a neurosurgeon. Witch doctor's opinion doesn't matter. Doesn't know what he's talking about. It doesn't matter what he wants to think or interject or try to ascertain. It's who's been there and who's done it. And that's the thing. Like, Combat JKD was about people who fought. And the training, if you were going to become one of his guys, you had to have had fights. And that's why, he told me that, I know about the fights with Carl. I mean, Carl had fights. Of course, Mike, everybody knows Mike had hundreds of fights. And that's the thing he was talking about, Ken, It's like, and the guy, Ron, he was the one, he told me that Ron was the guy who was constantly fighting, even over stuff that Mike wouldn't fight over. And if you guys know Mike, during some period, it didn't take much, did it, for him to launch into a fight? I mean, it didn't take much. Any sort of slight to him, that he thought was disrespect or basically disrespect, he was ready to go. Completely ready to go. So for him to tell me that Ron would go even faster, God, I don't know what the hell that was like, what I'm saying, but my point was, like, and then maybe, it's kind of interesting, because one of the stories that I'd like to hear from Mike is, why didn't anybody make it after me? That, I find that just unbelievable, it's just surprising, because there's been a lot of time after I made it and nobody else made it. So it shows what an elite group that we are, actually, because of having to last through it. But that's part of the stories of Combat JKD. And I guess that we should also, before we get out of here, that we should kind of tell people that we're close to a big announcement, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we're close to a big announcement. We have logistics working, hopefully for us. We're Stan and a lot on Ken's end. He's doing a lot of work to get things smoothed out, and then we're going to go forward. And we should be able to soon be able to make a public announcement. And this will be mega, something that people have asked us about, people have talked about for years. But you've got to remember, guys that are listening to this, watching the replay, it's not going to happen without your support. We can't do these things without your support. You asked for it, now you're going to have to stand up and show that you care about it and do it, because we're going to bring something together that's taken decades to arrange, and it's not easy. I'm just going to say it's not easy, and it's not cheap. So we pull it off. You guys got to support it, and the sooner the better. But we'll be giving you a lot more information on that. But anyway, so just to say once again, it's O'Neill JKD. It's O'Neill JKD on Facebook. Just put that into the search thing. You'll find him. Stan Brooks is. You get hold of him through Ken. Because he's kind of recluse, as you might know.
I got a Facebook also.
He's on Facebook as Stan Brooks. I'm not a recluse. I'm everywhere. I try to be. So I got all sorts of websites. Fluentfighting.com. That's the easiest one to remember. Combat-judo.com. Number 2, counterviolence.com. I'm on Facebook. I've got my own page, my personal page, which I don't really take a lot of people on that. I got too many. And my Clugston Combat Systems page, and then also Combat Judo and Tiger Clan Weapon Fighters groups. Those are 2 groups. So you guys can follow us all in there. Hey, like this. I know we're getting a lot of people that like these, but reshare the videos too, because there are other people out there that we don't know that would like to hear these stories about JKD, and also for all the peripheral JKD people, because we represent a group that a lot of people don't know, and we'd like to give them the opportunity to do it, because it sounds good when they hear about us. They want to know more, so here's a way, help them out. But anyway, so we'll be back soon. We'll be back very soon with some more talks and news, gigantic news. So stay tuned to this. Mark the page. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, by the way. That'll help you get notified. And we'll talk to you guys, like I said, as soon as we possibly can with good news.